So good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Roger Gagne. I'm the founder of Plan Alberta, a nonpartisan chorus of Alberta organizations calling for a robust and credible Climate Plan Alberta that is currently at 53 businesses, 17 nonprofits, and 3 faith groups that have signed on to that. So this year, 30,000 Albertans had to evacuate from their homes in the beginning of the worst fire season we've ever had. Then the city of Yellowknife had to evacuate. There are currently thousands of them here sheltering in Alberta for the time being, in Calgary, in fact. And Eastern Canada has not been spared either. The organization World Weather Attribution recently released a report saying that climate change more than doubled the likelihood of the extreme fire conditions that have been seen in Eastern Canada. After the Fort Mac fires in 2016, Arizona University climatologist Jonathan Overpeck wrote, "The Alberta wildfires are an excellent example of what we're seeing more and more of. Warming means snow melts earlier, soils and vegetation dry out earlier, and the fire season starts earlier. It's a train wreck." Our Alberta government, meanwhile, does not like to mention climate change and has never made the link between climate change and wildfires. They do, however, have a webpage titled Climate Change in Alberta, where you will find the statement, 97% of climate scientists now agree that human activity is responsible for most temperature increases over the last 250 years. All of our groups here today are deeply motivated by concern over the accelerating climate crisis, and we want our leaders to take action. One key part of that action is to phase out fossil fuels in generated electricity, replacing it with renewable power, improvements in energy efficiency, and by taking advantage of price drops and new technologies in energy storage. The biggest energy storage that we have available for us here in Alberta are BC's hydroelectric dams. The same thing is true for Saskatchewan with Manitoba and Ontario with Quebec. During an early summer heat wave this year in Texas, wind and solar installations were credited with keeping air conditioning running. At the peak hour on Tuesday, June 27th, wind and solar provided about 35% of their power versus 44% for gas, 14% for coal, and 6% from nuclear. And since they have zero fuel cost, once they're installed, then renewable power sources can bring down wholesale power prices. Most of our groups here today are run by volunteers, and all of us still have our jobs to attend to and our bills to pay. Although they could not be here today, we know that Alberta Beyond Fossil Fuels is acutely aware of the urgency of the climate crisis and well aware of the economic risks for our province if we fail to embrace the energy transition that is gaining ground on every continent on Earth. I'm going to now pass it over to Jaren Chu, representing UtilityNet and the Solar Club, both signatories to the Climate Plan Alberta website.
Hi, my name's Darren, D-A-R-R-E-N, last name Chu, C-H-U. Good morning, everybody. I'm here representing the Solar Club, which is a distinguished and premier solar renewable program offered by the UtilityNet group of companies. The Solar Club and UtilityNet are proud to present or announce today that we are launching our Hummingbird Virtual Solar Community. The Hummingbird Virtual Solar Community encompasses 4,000 of the estimated 13,000 microgen sites in Alberta. The estimated total capacity of our virtual solar farm is about 50 megawatts, and that encompasses over 100,000 solar panels that have been installed across the province. The Solar Club was established in 2019 and has had net zero goals since that first day. We have always maintained that our members would benefit from having net zero goals and using their solar systems and their microgeneration systems to meet those goals. In fact, we set ourselves a goal of exporting 100 million kilowatt hours of green energy back into the grid by 2030. We are now 50% of the way to that goal, well ahead of schedule. Our members in aggregate are collectively net zero. In fact, some of them are climate positive, given our additional benefits of gifting members renewable energy certificates to offset consumption that they consume over the course of a year. The recent orders in council and the moratorium on renewables has highlighted the need for our Hummingbird virtual solar community and the services that our solar club provides. Rooftop residential solar is an ideal solution to the issues highlighted in the moratorium, namely the fact that rooftop residential solar does not impact agricultural land, it doesn't have any impacts on Alberta's pristine viewscapes, and there are no reclamation costs because it's all being installed on private land, and private ownership controls the use of those systems. The solar club, The Solar Club is an ideal solution to Alberta's renewable challenges, and it provides an opportunity for Albertans to participate in Alberta's renewable energy strategy. It allows for Alberta to grow its renewable energy industry. It supports local initiatives, and it allows for community-driven innovation. The Solar Club continues to grow. We anticipate that by next year we'll have approximately 5,000 customers enrolled with the Solar Club and as members of our program. And that's it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claire Kraatz, and it is a privilege to join you today on Treaty 7 territory. I'm here to speak on behalf of parents in our For Our Kids Alberta network, expressing our endorsement of the federal clean energy target. For Our Kids Alberta holds a pivotal position within a national network of parents who are championing comprehensive climate policies and climate justice across communities in Canada. Our motivation is rooted in the well-being of our children. This summer has underscored the reality of climate change and its effects. Watching evacuations unfold in regions such as Yellowknife, Hay River, and the Okanagan in British Columbia, it is clear that urgent action is necessary to confront climate breakdown. Indigenous families and communities consistently find themselves at the forefront of these calamities, impacting their way of life. While they demonstrate remarkable resilience, the resources allocated to mitigation and adaptation have fallen short in addressing these human-made disasters that threaten human survival. Climate breakdown is happening because of the choices our leaders have made in the past, which persist in the present. These intentional choices have led us down a dangerous path. Swift action is imperative, and we are encouraged by the federal government's efforts to introduce clean energy regulations. We wholeheartedly support the goal of achieving a 100% clean electricity grid in Canada by 2035. Why do we as parents care about a clean energy grid? First, a clean power grid will enhance Canada's competitiveness. For young people in school or pursuing post-secondary education, it will provide them with new opportunities to engage with net zero initiatives and take part in the energy transition. Young people want information from credible sources, to be involved in discussions about the future, and to explore opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The Clean Energy Target is one avenue to engage and excite youth in our province, offering them a chance to be at the forefront of a sustainable future, while also providing an avenue for the federal government to create high-value job opportunities for those transitioning to clean energy and for young people at the start of their careers. For many, it could pave the way to internships, work experiences, and meaningful employment. Second, clean power is good for our wallets. Many households are currently dealing with the rising costs of food, housing, and gas. Parents and caregivers involved with For Our Kids advocate for collaborative efforts among elected officials. We urge them to prioritize a comprehensive plan that propels us towards net zero emissions and decreased energy costs. The prospect of lower expenses through a clean electricity grid driven by renewable sources is a promising one for families. Finally, achieving a clean electricity grid by 2035 is essential to address climate breakdown. Even those not on the front lines of these human-caused disasters have experienced smoky skies this summer. We've had to explain to our children that these fires are burning more ferociously due to global warming, due to the burning of fossil fuels. There have been days when we've confined our kids indoors or had them wear masks to protect against harmful wildfire smoke. Many parents worry about future summers and their potential challenges. Concerns about adapting to these threatening firestorms, endangering our families, well-being, and homes are growing among For Our Kids parents. Combating heat-trapping pollution is vital for health, the economy, and building resilient communities. The required technologies for a clean electricity grid by 2035 are available. What we need is the political will to make it happen. While we support the federal clean energy target, we believe there is significant room for improvement. We echo the comments of Carol Bruyette, Acting Executive Director of Climate Action Network Canada, and urge the federal government to end all fossil fuel subsidies and invest in public transportation, deep energy retrofits, and energy efficiency for our homes. While we can debate the appropriateness of the term just transition, we must face the reality that the energy transition has begun and prioritize the concerns of citizens who live and work in the communities impacted by it. Moreover, we strongly urge the Government of Alberta to lift the moratorium on renewables. We must align ourselves with the energy transition and collaborate closely with other levels of government to ensure the widespread implementation of existing technologies. I encourage parents, caregivers, and concerned Albertans to contact their MLAs and the Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schulz. Ask the United Conservative Party to support the federal net zero electricity target and lift the renewables moratorium. Our children need to feel hopeful about their future. Parents also need to feel hopeful and know that their children will be safe now and in the future. The proposed clean electricity target is a necessary step in the right direction. We implore the federal government to act urgently, not with baby steps, but with leaps and bounds. Thank you.
Can you spell your name first, by the way?
It's Claire, C-L-A-I-R-E. Kraatz is K-R-A-A-T-Z. Last name?
Oh, who are you with? Just one.
Oh, I'm with For Our Kids Alberta.
Good to go? Morning. Hello, my name is Gordon Peterson. Let me start over again. Hello, my name is Gordon Peterson, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak up on behalf of the Alberta Renewable Energy Alliance, or AREA as it's called, which is comprised of hundreds of renewable energy experts and enthusiasts across Alberta. We engage with our respective MLAs to advocate for renewable energy as a key component to mitigate the increasing dangers of climate disruption. We encourage all Albertans to do the same. Canada's federal bill S-5 passed on June 3rd, which amends the Canadian Environmental Protection Act and now recognizes that Canadians have a, quote, right to a healthy environment as provided under this act, unquote. Worth noting as well, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta, Lois Mitchell, signed Order in Council OC 120 dated March 29, 2017, in which Clause G states, quote, the development of alternative and renewable distribution system connected generation in Alberta, including micro and small-scale community generation, should be in line with the Government of Alberta's objectives of providing clean, affordable, and reliable energy to Albertans. Nasty wind. Therefore, in support of this new law and standing order and the Canadian government's target of achieving net zero GHG emission electricity generation by 2035, AREA recommends the following 2 actions. Number 1, the Alberta government immediately rescind the moratorium on renewable energy project approvals, which was announced by Premier Smith on August 3rd. Number 2, an ambitious interim low carbon electricity generation target of less than 100 kilograms CO2e per megawatt hour should be established for the year 2030. This target for Alberta total net generation represents a 75% reduction in the current emission intensity of 400 kilograms CO2e per megawatt hour. To achieve the low carbon target of 2030, the following 7 actions should be taken. A total of 17 gigawatts of additional zero carbon renewable capacity and energy storage by 2030 should foster more than 150,000, that's 150,000 direct and indirect jobs and offer an investment opportunity exceeding $25 billion here in Alberta. Number 2, coal production generation should be eliminated by the end of 2023. Number 3, renewable energy and energy storage should supply at least 2/3 of total electricity generation by 2030. Number 4, priority should be given to renewable generation of wind, solar voltaic, geothermal power, and interties upgrades. Number 5, short-term 4 hours and long-duration seasonal energy storage should be integrated with renewable generation to mitigate the intermittent nature of wind and solar power. Number 6, natural gas turbine generation should be required to achieve 100% reduction in GHG emissions by 2035. Number 7, an annual report should be posted publicly on the Alberta Environment and Parks website for each fiscal year ending March 31st to document the cumulative GHG emission reductions measured and to indicate the rate of progress toward the 2030 low carbon target. In summary, we encourage all Albertans to speak up for change that will benefit current and future generations of our children and all living things on this precious and threatened planet. Daily news reports of climate chaos and personal tragedies due to heat waves, wildfires, smoke, fire tornadoes, water bombs, mudslides, and droughts should never, ever be casually accepted as the new norm. Climate disruption is real, it's happening now, and our collective response to it must be science-driven and urgently supported by all levels of government. If this is something that concerns you, please reach out to your local MLA and to Energy Minister Rebecca Schulz. Ask that the Alberta government embrace the federal net zero electricity grid target and rescind the renewable energy moratorium immediately. These actions would not only help to protect our precious planet, but would create much needed jobs for Albertans. Thank you.
I just wanted to say once again, thank you so much for showing up. And I so much appreciate Gordon from AREA, Claire from For Our Kids, Darren from Utility-Net and Solar Club showing up this morning to stand up and speak for climate action starting now and rescinding the renewable moratorium, the renewable power that was doing so much good for our province and our reputation and investment. So these things really matter and our voices matter. I'm delighted that everyone showed up today. Thank you.
Audrey, can you answer a couple of just quick questions? Why
Sure.
do you think 2035 is the right timeline? Why not 2045 and why not 2050? Like, what is it about the 2035 timeline that you think is important for the Alberta government and all provincial governments to make?
Yeah, well, we've spent decades of punting the can down the road, and it's that question of is the energy transition going to be quick or is it going to be long? If it's long, then we consign millions of people around the world to higher temperatures, worse weather extremes, higher pollution, rising seas. I'm not willing to give up on our future generations. I'm not a parent, but I have nieces and nephews, and I'm not willing to give up and say, oh well, it's going to take too long. The scientific consensus is that we have to cut GHG emissions by 45% by 2030. That's a rapid pace, and if we choose not to do that, the consequences for everyone and for wildlife that we share this planet with are very steep.
What are some of your responses from partners about the moratorium and have they affected, how has the moratorium affected different programs and projects?
I know that the renewables moratorium has been widely decried. I have read lawyers, economists, investment bankers, and lots of grassroots people, Alberta citizens, saying that this is pointless and it hurts our reputation. It hurts our potential of taking substantial greenhouse gas reductions. So yeah, there are a few pockets of support for that initiative, but certainly the vast majority of what I've been hearing is people in favor of it being rescinded.
What would you tell people who are concerned about getting jobs in the oil and gas, the natural gas sector? How do you kind of reconcile this need for this energy transition with their concerns for their jobs?
Sure. So one thing I know about jobs is that a lot of jobs are being taken over by automation, and that's been happening for decades. It's accelerating. A lot of jobs are going to be taken over soon by AI. So those things have nothing to do with the energy transition. And yet the energy transition is happening. And this morning I read online that China's demand for oil is going to peak this year. Their growth of electric vehicles is taking over the market. And where China goes, then much of the rest of the world goes. So where is the market for our oil and gas going to be in 10 years, in 15 years? So I think if we want to look out for jobs, then the clean energy transition is where to find them.
A question for Darren, maybe Darren. Darren, what message is being sent, do you think, by the moratorium on renewables right now? Do you think this is negative to investment, or do you think this pause is going to have any sort of longer lasting ramifications?
I think it has a negative impact on investment. I think we've had a month now to observe the results of the announcement. From everything that I've seen, investors are shaken, there's uncertainty. It doesn't inspire confidence in Alberta's abundant renewable resources. Alberta is one of the sunniest provinces in the entire country. That's a well-known fact, and so to put a pause on large-scale renewable projects is very, I think, it complicates things for Alberta's energy future.
There's been the point made by the government, by several cabinet ministers, that 2035 isn't achievable for a net zero grid in this province, just given the thermal nature of the province right now. Does that argument hold water for you?
I think it's certainly possible that 2035 is going to be challenging to meet. We've seen numbers thrown around about how much it will cost to transition our grid to a net zero grid. Some have said 40 billion, some have said 90 billion. So ultimately what that tells us is nobody really knows how much it's going to cost. It's very expensive. What we do know is there is significant investment in renewables. If you look at our solar club as an example, the combined investment by our members in residential rooftop solar is about $77 million. So people are investing in renewables. It just is going to take some direction from government to have that happen on a bigger scale.
How do you get the public to buy in, lastly, because we're already seeing electricity bills go up. And I guess even the specter of electricity bills continuing to rise may have some people concerned about the speed of the transition. What would you say to I guess, concerns about affordability?
There's always ways to deal with the affordability issue. We've recently been putting out a lot of attention to things like the local access fee. And I know a lot of news media has covered the local access fee in Calgary, especially because it's tied to the regulated rate option, or the RRO. That doesn't just apply to electricity, though. Customers should be looking at their natural gas bills, because there's a similar issue happening on natural gas, and that's just under the title of franchise fees. And so this year, the city of Calgary is estimated to collect $300 million on local access fees and electricity, another probably $150 million in franchise fees for natural gas. And that's money that could do a lot of good for Calgarians. Even just looking at your bill and trying to find out, are you on the regulated rate option? It's something we've asked the government to make immediately transparent to all customers. If you're on a regulated rate option rate, it should be obvious. It should be the envelope the invoice arrives in should be read, so you know. Most of the customers we talk to, they have no idea if they're on the regulated rate, right? And for August, the regulated rate for Calgary was 31 cents. That's really high. But when you look at competitive retailers, you'll find rates in the 11 cent, 12 cent range. It's huge. A 20 cent difference in electricity costs for an average homeowner could translate to about $150 in savings just for August on energy costs alone. So when you factor in small changes like that, it does make it manageable. It just takes a little bit of work. I think customers are used to their energy bills being what they are. They set them, they forget them, they don't really think about it, and then they just pay the bill when it arrives. But I think now is the time for customers to really start paying attention to what they're paying for and starting to ask questions. If you're with Enmax or EPCOR or Direct Energy, whoever, it doesn't matter. Ask questions. Find out what you're actually paying for. We know there's a retailer out there who doesn't even post the rate that you're on the invoice itself. All it says is you've consumed so many kilowatt hours and you're going to pay this much. If you can't do the math to reverse that, you'll never know what your rate is. That's a problem, and that's something that should be addressed.
Wondering if you might have already hinted at this, but how has the moratorium affected Solar Club's projects, current ones as well as the ones in the pipeline?
In terms of the Solar Club, it hasn't had an impact on our customers. All of our customers are small microgen customers, which means their systems are less than 150 kilowatts in system size. The moratorium applies to projects that are 1 megawatt or larger. What it does highlight is the fact that our members and our program is a solution. It is a solution to the problems that were highlighted both in the AUC's announcement on their website and in the orders in council. Installing solar on your rooftop doesn't impact the viewscape. You would never even know it was there. Unless you're looking at people's rooftops, you wouldn't know it's there. It's not going to impact agricultural land. But even so, there are solutions to that. We know that there's agri-solar solutions that are in play and that people are looking at developing, which would very easily solve some of the issues around agricultural land use that is being allocated to solar projects. But even then, it all still comes down to it's private land. Those owners have the right to decide what is done with their property. And if they want to install solar, they should be allowed to do so.
Yeah, installing solar property costs $20,000, how do you make it easier for residents to afford it in the future going forward?
So one of the ways that we do that with the Solar Club is we offer different rates. our solar club has very specific rates that we offer both in the summer and in the winter. The summer rate is the one that's the most attractive. So essentially, per the regulation, the microgeneration regulation, every microgenerator has to be credited and charged at the same rate. And so what we do is in the summer months when they're generating excess power and consuming very little, we give them a higher rate of 30 cents a kilowatt hour. So they're being charged at 30 cents a kilowatt hour, but that's for a very small amount of consumption. Their generation, which will far exceed that consumption, well, now they're being credited at that higher rate as well. And what that does is it brings the payback period on a residential solar system down from 10 years to anywhere from 6 to 7 years. Naturally, that depends on the size of the system and how much you install, but at the end of the day, it is a way to improve the payback. We offer a 2% cashback program for Solar Club members. So at the end of the year, on all of the energy that they consume, we pay them 2% cash back. That also helps bring down their costs. They can sell their carbon credits. We know that the recent tier regulation amendments allow for the fund price for carbon credits to rise in alignment with the federal carbon pricing. So by 2030, there is the possibility that a single carbon credit could be worth $170. If you're generating 2 or 3 carbon credits in a year, well, now you're looking at anywhere from $500 to $600 potentially for your carbon credits, in addition to cashback, in addition to the money you're being credited for the excess energy you sell back to the grid. So there are ways to make a solar system affordable. It is always going to be a challenge, but it's definitely within reach. And as solar technology becomes more efficient, more effective, the cost will come down. There are more solar installers today than there ever were. So there's an obvious growth in the industry, and it's booming right now.